So just made a couple of rambling share videos. Can I really upload those? I don't know. I guess I could upload all of them if I want. Just say the same thing over and over again. The last time I did a reading out of this, the Book of Equanimity, so this is Buddhist. It's like Buddhist koans. It was a really important lesson for me specifically. Hopefully you got a lot out of it too. But I'm going to go ahead, this just open, and I'm just going to go ahead and read this one because I do feel like this is a different type of wisdom and really apropos for me. Let's see. I don't know. I just opened the book. So this is the Avatamsaka Sutra's wisdom. Preface to the assembly. A speck of dust contains the 10,000 shapes. A single thought is endowed with the 3,000 realms. How much more so a great man crowned by heaven and standing upon earth. Wow. A sharp one who, when you speak of the head, knows of the tail. Don't disregard your very own spirit and bury your family treasure. That's so weird. It's just what I was talking about in the video. Main case, attention. In the Avatamsaka Sutra, Shakyamuni Buddha says, as I now see all sentient beings everywhere, they're endowed with the Tathagata's wisdom and virtue. But because of deluded thoughts and attachments, they do not realize it. Funny, and I've been talking about Christ vision, seeing people as perfect and good, and that's how we flow love in. And look at what he is saying. He's saying the exact same thing. Buddhist monks are doing the same thing. The Buddha was saying, as I now see all sentient beings everywhere, they're endowed with wisdom and virtue. You're seeing the good in everyone. But because of deluded thoughts and attachments, they do not realize it. And that's funny. When I read that, I can see that in a different way. Appreciatory verse. Covered like heaven, supportive like earth, making a ball, forming a mass. Suffusing the Dharma realm, it's boundless. Crushing the tiniest motes, it lacks an interior, penetrating utterly the subtlest point. Who can distinguish the pro and the con? Buddhist ancestors come to repay their debt of karmic words. Ask old teacher O of Nansen and see. Every person eats but a single vegetable leaf. It's very interesting because Buddhism, I'm really enjoying this book. It's been a bit since I've sort of dug in, and I don't think I realized its metaphysical nature or the connections with how it's speaking of Jesus' sight. By defining Jesus as a God and giving him miraculous powers, we set him apart. What he really did was like the Buddha, where by seeing good and flowing so much of love into the world, God is love. So the more you flow the emotion love, the more you become like God, or the more you become God, really, because it's what you're vibing. You are it. Course in Miracles is so powerful about that you are love. You are created as love. So things just got a little wonky, right? Deluded thoughts and attachments. But when you can, what he says, but they do not realize it. It's the same line. Forgive them, Father. They know not what they do. They're just stuck with deluded attachments. They're just confused about who they are. They're not flowing love the way I do. Okay, according to the sutra, Buddha uttered the words in the main case of this koan when he became enlightened 2,500 years ago. Everybody without exception has the wisdom and virtue of the Buddha. Though has is a misleading word, implying that perhaps wisdom is like an object that we can possess, if only. All beings, including you, are endowed with the Tathagata's wisdom as part of their birthright. But if you don't realize it, then it doesn't really have any significance for you. You have to know it. The sutra is highly revered in the Koan school of Buddhism. The central image of Buddhism, of Koan Buddhism, is Indra's net. At each one of the junctions of net, there's a jewel that totally reflects every other jewel. We are all reflecting everything else. I've been saying that so much lately. That's really kind of tweaking me out, like just how reflective I am of different scenarios. Like if I'm in a situation, I become the amplified version of it. It's very reflective. And my reflection in other people. I mean, it's funny because my husband had these big breakthroughs. I had these big breakthroughs during this class back in grad school, right? Did my first class, big stuff. And it's that metaphysical principle, though, be the change you want to see in the world, change yourself and everything else changes. And not suddenly, my husband's amazing and has so much depth, but he hasn't done as much deep diving, and he did. He's like taking this time and he's really starting to, but I also just did. So it's like he kind of has to follow suit because there's this piece, this metaphysical reflective piece. Like, I think insecure people, it's interesting, especially in marriages, tend to think that if someone grows, they'll grow away from them. And they don't realize that if they grow, since they're partnered, you'll grow with them. You grow together. Or not. Right. The sutra also teaches that the mind is the universe itself, which is pretty true if you get into the metaphysics. Abraham, Course in Miracles, like you're talking a vibrational world. It is all mind. The mind is the universe itself. I mean, you can have a dream and think you did all kinds of things and you didn't move. So really, the universe is in your mind. And that this mind is the Buddha mind. Here, Shakyamuni says that all beings everywhere have this mind, the one mind. Each one of us without exception. You might imagine this means everybody else but me, but the sutra is very clear. It means everyone. You have an inner being. Once when I was frustrated with my practice, I asked Roshi, can everyone realize their true nature? Sure. If one doesn't realize this inherent wisdom, it is like a person of magnificent stature who sees himself as feeble, sick, and destitute. As if in a dream, he does not see his true body, blessed with myriad marvelous qualities, but takes the sick and suffering one to be his own. In case 10 of the Gateless Gate, Master Sozan says to monk Seize, having tasted 3 cups of the best wine in China, do you still say that your lips are not yet moistened? Our deluded thoughts and our attachments blind us to our true nature. A deluded thought is any thought that creates a gap between ourselves and others or other things, or between ourselves and ourselves. It's weird. This is getting so weird. I just made a video about it's so weird we can lie to ourselves more than anyone else. This book is tripping me out. I guess it's everything. Everything's going to start to get that way, isn't it, for me? The more powerful I get, the more I focus, the more I open up. Like, I'm assuming that's the strange metaphysical spiritual awakening journey, is when you're in the right space that everything starts to sync up. So a deluded thought is any thought that creates a gap between ourselves or others, or between ourselves and ourselves. And that's just saying, anytime you're telling a lie and you start to believe it, it's no longer real. It creates a gap. This is what I've even been talking on here with these videos, right? Like when people are pretending online or even on social media, they're creating a gap because it's innately a lie. When you're representing something that isn't real, then you're creating a lie and a space between myself and someone else, and myself and myself, because I'm pretending to be something I'm not, or selling myself as something I'm not, or, saying yes when I don't really feel that way, or no when I want to, whatever it is, when I want to say yes. Like, it creates a gap between ourselves and others, or ourselves and ourselves. In the movie A Christmas Story, a young boy believes that if only he had a Red Ryder BB gun with a double barrel action, then his life would be perfect. Each one of us has our own elusive Red Ryder BB gun. Everyone warned the boy, be careful, you'll put out your eye. As long as we grasp after it, it will definitely put out our eye. We have all kinds of ideas that we're attached to. I can't do it. I won't do it. I'm not as good as everyone else. I'm better than everyone else. I'm stupid. I want to be enlightened. I am enlightened. Zazen is easy for everyone but me. Master Dogen expressed it very clearly. To study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. As long as you believe that there's a separate self, you won't clearly see. I have to read this again here. Master Dogen expressed it very clearly. To study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. Now that's intriguing because in coaching, it's like all about, especially the coaching mindset is all about learning like your personal biases and your learning to kind of forget yourself, especially in the presence of someone else, like just focusing and being present with them to the point where you are only really listening and responding. You aren't there, your biases, your judgments, like you're just loving them and being. That is the main focus of a coach training. We're tapping into a spiritual mechanism. And I almost wonder if when we do that, if we're getting those benefits because we are the ones that get to forget ourselves. That's the practice. As long as you believe that there's a separate self, you won't clearly see. I get that in a new way. Integration. It's very difficult to let go of it because it takes courage to let go of that notion of self. It does. It's very sad sometimes. I struggled with that for a while when I was letting go of this idea that this earthly personality was really significant. What I've come to is realize the soul is significant. My soul will go on. But this is just like I am talking about acting in my life. I am a spiritual being acting as a human. I mean, I'm doing it on so many different levels. I love things with layers. It's very difficult to let go of it because it takes courage to let go of that notion of self. If you let go of the self, then how are you going to function? How are you going to know right from wrong? It's a huge Christian concern, right? Like, how would you know? We don't trust ourselves innately, which means we don't trust God. Because if we trust God to be a truly loving God that we could trust, then we trust him. Right? We wouldn't make up all these things. Or if we trusted him, we'd trust ourselves, I should say, as extensions of him as his creation. So we spend all of our energies trying to protect or aggrandize the self or to pity it. Dogen continues, to forget the self is to be enlightened by the 10,000 dharmas. If you can just let go of your attachments to your ideas about who you are, then all phenomena, the 10,000 dharmas, will reveal your enlightenment, your wisdom as the virtue of the Buddha. If you can just let go of your attachments to your ideas about who you are. It's also a piece of getting your voice back, I can see. Because we all have these ideas of perceptions and things that when you really start speaking, when I'm starting to speak smite, which is my joke term for it lately because something's changing, it's just coming out. And you do have to have let go of some of my attachments about who I am. I can feel it because when I say stuff, if I really were to go off, especially in a public space, like there's gonna upset a lot of people. It's a completely new conversation, and you have to let go of your attachments to ideas about who you are, that I want to be liked, that I'm smart, that I'm good, anything that it is, whether it's good or bad. And I've been attached to a lot of bad things about myself, but some good. I can see how they all cause problems. It's kind of like I'm young and beautiful, and then if I'm not that way anymore, then I have to start, injecting my face with Botox, and, that's just a random example, but you know what I'm saying. There's an old story of a monk who carries a sack of horse shit around with him. Each time he goes to a monastery, he puts his sack down, looks around, and says, "Boy, this place stinks. I'm not staying here." Then he picks up his sack and carries it with him to the next place. And surprise, that place stinks too. There's only one constant in all the troubles we have in life. Ourselves. That's a great story. I've totally done that. I I can relate in many ways. We've developed certain ways of behaving, certain patterns, certain habits over our lifetimes. I'm so dumb that I think I'm doing that right now, actually. That's how we define ourselves, how we identify ourselves. Got it. We've developed certain ways of behaving, patterns and habits, and then we call it ourself. But really, it's similar to what Abraham says, right? A belief is just a thought you continue to think. We think it's actually like a belief, a thing, but it's not. It's just repetitive. Same with patterns. It's just you doing what you do because you do it. But that's how we start to identify ourselves and define ourselves. It's our secure haven, even though we may not be fully satisfied or fully comfortable. At least it's familiar. So this practice requires that we let go of our most cherished views. This is really helpful to me because I wondered why it was so painful sometimes. Well, I'm letting go of my most cherished views, the things that I thought made me me. Why wouldn't that be sad? I'm loving discovering what's beyond that. But of course, that's going to be a process. To forget the self is to be enlightened by the 10,000 dharmas, including the dharma of having a difficult time. There it is. Master Omen told his disciples, every day is a good day. And the Maezumi Roshi added, even having difficulties every day is a good day. How can that be? If I have difficulties, it's a bad day. It's not a good day. He's getting into unconditional living, right? We're going to jump right into Abraham here through Buddhism and metaphysics. It's hilarious. To forget the self is to be enlightened by the 10,000 dharmas. So in other words, he's talking unconditional living. Even having difficulties, to be enlightened by the 10,000 dharmas is to free one's body and mind and those of others, to drop away attachment to our own body and mind as my body and mind. I have never heard Buddhism nail the Abraham metaphysics point so well. This is hilarious. I love you, universe, and I love when you talk to me like this, and I love when you give me wisdom like this. Thank you, and thank you to this book. Thank you, Benny. Hello. You want to come say hi to nice people with the reading before you finish? Yeah, no, she's going to run away. She's like, hey, don't put me away. Okay. So, to be enlightened by the 10,000 dharmas is to be free of one's body and mind and those of others, to drop away attachment to our own body and mind as my body and mind. If you realize that your body and mind are not your body and mind, that is the universal body and mind. So when you realize you're not a physical being and let go of the physical identity, you can join more with your inner being or spiritual self, sort of, or become more whole because you're letting go, and then you become universal or whole. How would you function? Then every day is a good day. Master Dojin goes on, no trace of this enlightenment remains, and this traceless enlightenment is realized forever. As long as you have a notion of enlightenment or delusion, it's another idea. So how to really be free? The verse to the present case says, crushing the tiniest motes, it lacks an interior, penetrating utterly the subtlest point. Who can distinguish the pro and con? Exhaust the self, exhaust the moment. Examine the minutest detail. Cease to distinguish pro and con. It penetrates everywhere. So where is the mysterious subtlety other than the turmoil of the moment? Exhaust the self, exhaust the moment, examine the minutest details, cease to distinguish pro and con. In other words, unconditional living, stop looking at what's right and wrong all the time. Where's the mysterious subtlety other than the turmoil of the moment? In other words, no matter what you're experiencing, you can still experience the joy of life and the benefit to what you're going through in the sense of an overarching, well, they would call it enlightened by the 10,000 dharmas. This life is boundless. If you crush it, it has no interior. If you expand it, it has no limit. The preface says a single thought is endowed with the 10,000 realms. One thought creates an infinite number of thoughts. One speck of dust contains the 10,000 shapes. Don't disregard your own spirit and bury your family treasure. You are the Buddha. Let it shine through. One thought creates an infinite number of thoughts. That's a very interesting concept the Course in Miracles gets into, and Abraham as well, just talking about how thoughts are things and they start to vibrate on their own and attract other thoughts to them. Like thoughts actually develop momentum and their own thing that's happening. So that was really powerful. Definitely a reason I'm feeling pulled back to this. I really am loving Jerry Wick. I wonder if he's still up in Boulder. And I haven't read an Abraham flip book in a while, so I'm going to go ahead. Babies. Babies come forth to remind adults of that which they have forgotten. They are the well springs of the eternal life that is promised to all physical beings. They come forth in absolute perfect balance, perfect in numbers, in physical appearance, but most importantly, perfect in balance of desires and intentions. If the natural desire within each precious babe is allowed to develop without destructive human criticism and control, the child's ability to fulfill his non-physical purpose unfolds early in his physical life, bringing joy to the child and to those who surround him. Look into the eyes of a little one and see the wisdom of his true knowing. He knows that all is well. He has come to remind you. Oh, that was good. We haven't done one of those in a while. Thanks for being here. We're going to get back to it. And it's going to continue to evolve and change. And I'm just grateful you're here with me. Thank you. I love you.